So I consider that the so-called black people of the West are actually the Jews of the scripture. And, it's a weird thing in my life because I was always taught that these people from Europe were Jews. And so, you're looking one direction, you're not. But then when you start looking at first you go well, are they ethnically Jew? And you look for that, right? And I think the best argument for the ethnicity of their Jewish heritage is the old maps.
The Gold Coast, Kingdom of Judah, or wider, Slave Coast. Okay, land of Negro land. Okay, this is only one aspect of this copious history or vast history.
The old sailors' maps have the interior of West Africa named Judah land, and there's a couple other things that are very Hebrew tribe related. A lot of people contend that the Ibu tribe of Africa that's just really a variation of the word Hebrew. So those are points to be made, perhaps anecdotal, because I think as I've looked into the blood path, it's hard to follow on either side. And so I don't want to contend against the European Jewish people, right? If they are a fulfillment of Noah's prophecy, we don't want to treat them the way that Ham treated Noah, right? If these are the children of Japheth dwelling in the tents of Shem, when Noah said that, he was saying they would dwell safely, right? That Shem and Japheth are brothers. So I believe that there's something redemptive to this thing.
So now we're at Revelations 13 and 10. Oftentimes they depict this in the Planet of the Apes series and trilogy as well. But we got to remember, they know the scriptures, at least the upper crest of the elite Caucasians or Edomite Jews. They know what's going to happen to this kingdom and what's going to transpire. And it states, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. And who are the saints? The Israelites, the children of Israel.
And so when I look at the black Hebrew, what is solid for me, I think about God's character. I think about the character of God. I think about the evidence of the scripture. I think about what Yahweh says to Moses when he says, surely I've heard the groaning of my people, knowing that this people have groaned. In that same way, the groan of being the captive, right? Being this whole system is parasitic to this one people and keeping this people down, and then you wonder, well, how can you get value from putting another person down? Well, it just is proof that people have value.
We must remember our rise is their downfall, especially in this kingdom. Now, when you look at the music industry, you look at all the artists from hip hop to R&B and so forth, even the old artists from the 50s and 60s, they never could own their publishing. I'm not going to say all of them didn't get a chance to own their publishing, but a lot of these artists were owned by the record labels. And we all know who owns the record labels. Also, you have to look at the status of the so-called blacks, of the captivity. We don't own our own records, even though our history is very vast and copious. But also, our ideas are stolen and taken, and then given to other people and other racial groups or whatnot. And we're called bywords and proverbs.
And specifically, when you talk about the Hebrew people, I think that would also say that, the record of the Hebrew race, do we need to know the blood ethnicity of the Hebrews? I don't know. But when I look at the way that the Jew of the scripture, the way the Hebrews of the scripture were treated, this people has been treated that way. And what it says of the people in Deuteronomy 28 that if they rejected his law, what would happen to them? That has happened to this people. Read that, Deuteronomy 28. It says that they would be taken on ships into Egypt again and be placed in bondage, and no one would redeem them. That has happened to this people.
So now we're at Romans chapter 9, verse 21. Has not the potter power over the clay, and of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor and another unto dishonor? Some are meant to get it and some are not meant to get it. It's just like this knowledge or this truth. Some accept it, some will not. And then sometimes we ask ourselves, how am I getting this? How am I understanding? Because I'm reading and studying, and yet your family members don't know what the hell you're talking about. They're lost in the sauce. Just be happy you get it and understand it, and don't go off.
You know, like it's over and over. And so you're like, you start asking the question, like, do you mean to tell me that God's not going to help this people because they're not Jews, even though the system has treated them 100% as if they were? And you don't think the God that delivered captives out of Egypt isn't near to this people? I tell you, they are special to him. And I'll tell you, I was thinking about this as I was coming in, that the idea that the system that enslaved them could then liberate them just is not true. Really, what I think we need in this life is the prophetic eyesight to get out of the way, right? Yahweh is doing an act of deliverance. And I also would say, as part of the black-white equation, I would argue that is the Jew-Gentile equation. That's the same dilemma, that the Jew was black, right? We know that the people that are here that came on ships from West Africa, we call them black, but they're not black, they're brown, because black isn't about the color of the skin. Black is about polarizing the ruling class from the slave class.
Ding, 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 ding. Negroes, the only people who have no knowledge of his or her true heritage. Black is not a country or a nationality. It's a color, aka a crayon. What's your nationality?
Right, and so when the scripture talks about the dividing wall between Jew and Gentile, the Jew was the slave. When the Jew reject Yahweh, the story was they would go back into bondage. And wait, right, groan for what a time, right? We know that the scripture tells us that it was 430 years. It says 400 once, and then it says 430. So, but still, that's poignant, and that God sent a deliverer. And then we see that the scripture talks about some sort of an exodus, right? And one, even Moses said one would come like him. So I consider that the so-called black people of the West are actually the Jew.
Never a Bible. Well, not until now.
Meaning your forefathers wrote the Hebrew history book. That's why he said he never had a Bible until now. So we all know or heard of the King James Bible, one of the most famous Bibles in the world. So James is a surname in English language originating from the given name itself, derived from the Hebrew Jacob or Jacob.
Not until now. Well, may I ask what condition it's in? Speed up. But it will do the job. Do you think I could see it?